Hey YouTube, Levi here with East Ridge Outdoors. I was getting ready to cook lunch, and so I decided to show you how I make a fire, and some of the ways to make fire, and all that good stuff. Kind of a thing for beginners, basically, for those who aren't so familiar with the outdoors and whatnot. Okay, so what I have here is basically what I keep in my fire kit. All this, did come out of my fire kit except for this grass. We'll get to that in a minute. That's just an example. But I will start with the different ways to make fire. You want repetition. You don't want to count on one thing to be your only source of fire. So I took one thing and picked it up because I am a smoker. Health nut, So what I have here, of course, is a lighter. I have matches. These are stormproof, these orange ones, which is windproof, waterproof, all that good stuff. My personal favorite, the ferro rod, and then a bow drill. Friction fire, which is the hard way. I just made that bow drill. I haven't tried it out yet. It might not work at all. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try it. It's going to be my next skill, as far as fire making that I try to master. The ferro rod I'm very confident with. I've done it in all weather, all conditions. But it's my favorite. It's my go-to. But obviously a lighter's the easiest, followed by matches. I do keep a candle. I'll get it right here, just to show you here. In my kit as well. And this for several reasons. You can actually use these for heat. As crazy as that sounds. But you can also use it, if you're low on fluid, or you want to conserve your fluid in your lighter, or you have one match, something like that. Light that candle, and then you have a lot more time with your flame. But anyway, I do prefer the ferro rod. Magnifying glass is kind of fun. Takes a minute. I guess it depends on the day. It took a little while the day I did it. Probably close to 15 minutes. But I'd say on a really hot summer day, at the right time of day, it'd probably be quick and easy. I mean, I've seen people burn, right stuff with them. So they have the power to do it. It's just, the size of your glass and obviously the sun that day, weather conditions. This one is fairly large and it works really well. So once you decided how you're going to make your fire, I'm going to use the ferro rod for an example because that's my go-to. Now, friction fire, you're only going to get an ember. You will not get a flame. You're not going to get a spark. You're only going to get an ember. Just know that it's ember created by the dust and the friction and the heat. And so it's basically, just a little piece of coal that you got to nurse. And that's what the grass is for. You would need a lot more than this. And you have to take it and wad it up, make it real fine, fibrous, spread it open. I just left that there for an example. But once you get your ember, you have to transfer it into your tinder bundle or bird's nest and then blow the crap out of it without blowing it out. You want a big enough ember that you're not going to blow it out. And blow the crap out of it until it makes a flame, and then you've got just a few seconds to get it into your fire. That's very labor intensive, but I'm going to learn this bow drill thing. Just because you never know when you don't have anything except for maybe a knife. This is char cloth. Same thing as what you create here. You throw a spark on this and it will create that ember, that coal. It'll just sit there and burn. I'll actually show you. Okay. Can you see that through this camera? Ooh. But as you can see, there is an ember. Yeah, it's burning a little bit. You would transfer that to your nest. Then you would blow. Oh yeah, see? And fire. Boom. So that's what you would do with this. Only this is a much easier method. You just throw a spark on that, you've got it. So now you've seen that. I didn't actually intend to really do that, but it's done now. Other ways, these are all basically, this would work with an ember too. This is jute twine, it's all shredded up. This is cotton. This is a tinder wick, which is basically lantern wicks that I've soaked in wax. Braided 3 of them together. And then you've got some fat wood. This is something I make. This is a fire starting cube. I've got the little wick here, and that's what takes the flame usually. But it'll catch off of a ferro rod. But sometimes this will actually catch. It's the shavings from my fat wood. I save them and make those. This is the easiest. This is great stuff. Birch bark. This is white birch. Silver birch also works, but it doesn't catch like white. White birch will catch. It'll strike. It'll create a flame just from a ferro rod, just from the sparks. In order to do that with birch bark, you have to scrape it. You can scrape the outside or the inside, but you keep scraping it until you get to that resiny stuff. You know, it's reddish, and then that will catch a spark and make a flame. And so cotton does great. It'll burn. But some of these are what they call flash tinders. Like this is a flash tinder. This is a flash tinder. This is my favorite because this will burn for a while. Even just the shavings or the dust. I'm going to show you what I do with this here in just a minute. And this will burn for a good while too, actually. Birch bark. It burns up a lot quicker than that, but it burns pretty good. But some of that stuff you've got no time. You know, as soon as you get the flame, you got to get that into your fire, and then you get your fire going. But the most important thing to do, I'm going to bring this camera over here. I'll be a little shaky for a second. Is, you see, I've got my wood. I've separated it. I have the tiny stuff for when I get a flame. And then it just gets bigger. And then actually, I'm here a lot, so I have, you know, a little stockpile of wood too. But wood is most important of all. You need a way to feed your flame. It sucks so bad to make a fire and not have the fuel for it, because then you have to start all over. And if it was a struggle that day, then guess what? You get to struggle twice, and then you get to gather wood and all that stuff all over again. So make sure you have enough. I try to make sure I have enough to do me for at least a few hours. That way, that gives me time to do whatever I need to do, and then be able to go get more wood. Unless it's getting dark, and then I try to get as much as I can before it gets dark. It sucks gathering the wood in the dark. Now, when it comes to starting your fire, it is best to take tinder with you. As you can see, you know, all this come out of my fire kit. I bring this with me every time I come out. Sometimes it is hard to find a good source, you know, a tinder source out in the wild. The best thing you can do, you know, if you're in the woods, right now I'm in a field, as you can see. There's the woods up there at the back of the property. Well, about halfway across, but anyway. When you're in the woods, you know, a lot of trees look alike. Look up. You know, look up to the sky and look for pine, as you can see there, birch, or cedar. Those are your go-tos. You will start a fire with those. They do great, even in wet conditions. Cedar, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a very shaggy looking tree. It's hairy. Sorry about the shakiness. I'm trying to put this back down. And you can just peel the bark off of it, shred it up, and it'll catch a spark. It'll light. I've already told you about birch bark, and now I'm going to show you what I do with fatwood. You want to use, when you're doing this, use the spine of your knife. Save the edge. It's just so much better. On your knife anyway. But you take the back of your knife and just scrape it. And you can see it's blowing away everywhere. You want to do this where there's no wind. Or try to, block the wind, whatever. Sometimes it's impossible to get out of it, but you want to block it. And you want to get a good sized pile. About the size of this cube is a good standard. I use less usually because I've done this a lot and I know how much I need usually to start my fires. But it's best to have too much. You can only have not enough. And you can see it doesn't take that long to get a decent pile going, especially since the wind stopped blowing so much. So when you got this, say that's a giant pile, that's what I'm calling it. I will take this and then I'll start shaving it. Now that I do use, obviously, the blade for, and get some little shavings. Now if you got a bigger piece, it's obviously going to be a lot easier. That's what people call them, feathers. You can see people doing feather sticks, doing the same thing. They just leave it on there. I don't ever do feather sticks because, well, I don't really need to. But sometimes it does make it really easy. You spend some time to do a couple feather sticks, especially those of you that aren't real handy with making fire. They catch really well, and then it's a lot less work in the long, after you get it going. They'll burn for a minute because all the feathers catch on fire, and then that stick catches on fire. But anyway, so I showed you what to do with the fatwood. Now I'm going to start this fire. I'm going to bring you over here to my fire pit and show you how I prepare to build my fire. I've got the sticks, you see that. This is what I'm going to use to build my fire. These other sticks over here. Okay, so basically what I do is remember Lincoln Logs? That's what I do with my fire. And I work my way in like a pyramid. Before I go too far, what I like to do is find a piece of bark or flat wood or something like that I can sit right there in the center with my tinder bundle or whatever on there. So let me grab that and I'll be right back. I'm going to stop it, save some battery. Okay, I'm back. So I've got I went ahead and gathered up my fatwood shavings, and I don't know what you call that. We'll call it feathers and shavings to avoid confusion. But my fatwood goodies, and then I'll take this bark. I'm going to stick it down in there. Put this one across it. And then add a few more these. Now why I do that is because when I start this fire, the biggest mistake people make building fires is they get a flame going, they just start throwing crap on there and they smother it. So this prevents me from smothering my flame. The flame is set down in there, it's a little pyramid, and so when I light this, I'm going to use my ferro rod. Wow, that's blowing around in there, that's crazy. And strike this to make it light. And then I'm going to take my smallest stuff, which is twig size, smaller than pencil, the smallest stuff I've got, and I'm going to set it right here, right on top. And then that will catch, that will prevent it from smothering, and I've never had an issue building a fire this way. It's pretty much a fail-safe method. Well, at least it has so far. It's worked for me for years. So now when you do a ferro rod, it's all about the pressure. You can use a striker. I use the back of my knife, obviously, but it's all about pressure. And you know, most people when they learn, they go that way. The best thing to do, starting out right off the bat, is to learn to pull back. Now, why that is because when you're trying to light this, when you're shoving your knife down in there, especially when you don't have it set up like this, if you're doing it on a stump, I mean, there's all kinds of random places you're gonna try to start a fire. But when you do this, if you shove down, you're gonna blow your crap everywhere. And then you'll pretty much have to do it again, start over, unless you get lucky and save some of it. So try to get used to putting your ferro rod down and pull up. Well, it is burning. I was wondering, I just didn't see the flame. And you see, this is burning. This will burn for a minute. So I'm just going to put this right on top. But it's not actually touching it, so it's not going to put it out. But it'll crawl up that and start my fire for me. You see, I put a couple of them down in there like that. I call those fuses. That's just something I've always done. The fire likes to crawl up. Fire likes to climb. Fire never burns down. Well, I mean, I guess you can make an upside down fire, but you know what I mean. Okay, so you got to see me fail a little bit there. It was burning, but I don't know if y'all noticed when I pushed this ferro rod into there, I broke that bark and dumped out half my shavings. So I didn't have enough. I thought it would still be enough, but that's why I said always have too much. Never have, you can only have not enough, which is what I had, was not enough. It's still down in there, but I'm not going to try to dig it back out and all that. So what I'm going to do is show you a different source. I'll show you birch bark. So I'm going to remove all these again. Maybe not all of them, but the majority, you know, so I can get down in here. And that's kind of convenient about birch bark. It's kind of like its own plate. You know, it's already there. You don't have to put anything under it usually. I tend to anyway, because I like to have some support when I do this. But this birch bark's wanting to be difficult. All right, when you got a difficult piece, what I like to do, shred this up a little bit. I probably should have done that first. That just gives it more things that can catch, more surface area is what they say. Oh yeah, it's burning. Okay. And you see how quick the birch bark gets going. What I did, I don't know if you could tell on video at the end there, I shoved my ferro rod down in there to get those sparks closer. That's why I like to have that bark or a piece of wood down there, so that if I need to do that, I can. Because if you don't, you're going to stick it straight into the mud and have all kinds of problems. Alright, so now our fire is going. And building it this way, I can throw all that on there and I can't smother it. Now, if I was using like leaves or something, you know, I could smother it then. I'm sure. I don't know. I don't use leaves, but I've seen people smother fires with leaves thinking it's going to burn real good, and it does not. And so there you have it. You know, fire. It's all about practice. Being familiar with, you know, the different tinders, different ways of start. I mean, there's so many different methods to start a fire, so many different types of fires. I don't even know what this is called. Maybe a pyramid fire, who knows? There's this fire, there's upside down fires, there's star fires, there's torch log fires. What was that one? The Dakota fire pit. There's so many different ways to make a fire. But I highly suggest you learn several, especially that Dakota fire pit. That's a handy one. You know, especially if you're stealth camping, or it's also a way to, you know, you get a super amount of heat. Once you look it up, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm not going to get into all that, but learn different methods to start it. Learn different, you know, tinders, what wood's good, what wood's not. There's a lot of them that are terrible. But yeah, that's about it. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. You know, I need people to subscribe. Subscribe to my shit. And then if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down, give me a comment, let me know why. I'm surprised if you comment, because, you know, this is the end of the video. I should start saying this stuff earlier. Maybe I should say it at the beginning of the video. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll change that up. Yeah, and if you didn't stay to the end, you know, then screw you. You didn't learn how to make a fire, man. So, thanks, guys. I'm out.